My mom raised her hand first, then my dad, then my aunt, then people I hadn't spoken to in months. One by one, like they were voting on what to eat for dessert, they voted me out of the family. My daughter looked at me, confused. I didn't cry, I didn't beg, I just smiled and walked away. What they didn't know was that some things can only be taken if you never owned them to begin with. But I did, and I was done pretending I didn't. I'm Elaine Winters, Chama, 40 years old, single mom, full-time ICU nurse. I don't stir drama. I don't raise my voice. I'm that too quiet one who always offers to do the dishes, the one who remembers birthdays and texts back even when no one replies. I guess I thought that meant something. Turns out, it didn't. Last Sunday, my mom, Veronica, texted me for the first time in weeks. Family dinner this weekend. Would be nice to see Chloe too. 6 p.m. at the house. I stared at that message for a long time. The house, not our house, but I agreed anyway. Chloe, my 12-year-old, still believes in birthday wishes and good intentions. She lit up when I told her we were going. We arrived 5 minutes early. The house looked exactly the same. White shutters, red porch swing, the smell of lemon furniture polish, and nostalgia. It used to feel warm. It didn't anymore. My father, Robert, greeted us with a nod. No hug. No, how have you been? Mom was slicing fruit in the kitchen and barely glanced up. No one asked how work was, how Chloe was doing in school. I tried to help with dinner prep and was handed a salad bowl, then quietly moved aside. During dinner, Chloe was seated at the kids' table. She didn't mind, but I noticed. No one talked to me unless they had to. Conversations floated around me like I was furniture. Then after dessert, Mom stood up with her wine glass in hand. She cleared her throat, smiling gently. I think, for everyone's peace of mind, we should vote on something tonight. I blinked. She turned to the room. Should Elaine continue attending family events going forward? No one looked at me, not even Chloe. But one by one, hands went up. Dad, Aunt Merrill, my cousin's husband, who I barely knew. Every single one, except for Uncle Bill, who just stared at his plate. Chloe looked at me confused. Mom, why are they doing this? I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just smiled and said, "Thank you for dinner." And I walked out, still silent, still standing. But that smile, it wasn't defeat. It was a warning, because they forgot whose name was still on the deed, but I hadn't. And soon, they were going to remember. The drive home that night was quiet. Not awkward quiet, just empty. Chloe fell asleep halfway, her head resting against the window. She didn't ask any more questions, and I didn't offer any answers. I kept my hands at 10 and 2, eyes on the road, heart in my throat. It wasn't the vote that hurt the most. It was realizing I wasn't even surprised. I pulled into our apartment complex, parked, and sat in the car for a minute. You ever do that? Just sit. Not because you're tired, but because going inside means finally facing the feelings you've been trying to outrun. That was me, right then. Later that night, I curled up on the couch with my laptop and opened a folder I hadn't touched in years. Family. Old photos, text threads, screenshots, receipts I kept without meaning to. Like the time Mom sent, "Better if you drop Chloe off. Some people are still uncomfortable around you." Or the Easter message from Dad, "Let's keep this year small, just immediate family." I remember staring at that message the day it came. I was holding Chloe's basket full of hand-dyed eggs and a carrot cake I stayed up to bake. We never went. We never even got a reply when I asked if we should swing by after dinner. I'd forgotten about those little cuts, but scrolling through now, they piled up like bruises I never treated. Not just exclusion, erasure. You know what's wild? I thought I was doing the right thing by staying quiet, by not making a scene, by not being dramatic. How many of you have done that? Played the role of the calm one just to keep the peace, until the peace became a prison? Let me know in the comments if that's ever been you, because I see you. I really do. That night, as Chloe slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and let the truth settle like dust in my lungs. They never loved me for who I was. Only for what I gave. My money, my help, my silence. Without it, I was just a reminder of the son they lost, of the mistakes they made, of the daughter who never quite fit the mold. I thought about how Chloe had looked at me at the dinner table, so confused, so trusting. I knew I couldn't let her grow up thinking this was normal, that love was conditional, that you had to earn your place at a table you helped build. So I got up, boiled water for tea, didn't drink it. Chloe was still sleeping, curled up under her pink blanket, one arm slung across her stuffed penguin. I kissed her forehead and slipped into the living room, grabbing the box from the top of the closet. It was old, dusty, taped shut with masking tape and years of good intentions. Inside, bank statements, signed contracts. A manila envelope labeled House Deed. I sat cross-legged on the carpet, flipping through the paperwork. 5 years ago, when my parents nearly lost the house to foreclosure, I was the one who stepped in. They couldn't get a loan, bad credit, past debts, too many late payments. So I used my savings, took out a mortgage, stood in front of a notary, signed every line. The agreement was clear. I owned the house. I just never said it out loud. I didn't want power. I wanted them to feel safe. Wanted to keep the holidays alive, give Chloe a childhood home that didn't come with eviction letters. But looking back, that silence, that self-erasure was my biggest mistake. That afternoon, I made 2 calls. One to my lawyer, Lena Carter, who used to be my college roommate and now worked in estate law. The second to a property management firm. Lena's voice didn't even flinch when I explained what happened. "You're the legal owner. You've got every right to do what's needed." I sent her copies of the deed, mortgage, and payment receipts. She reviewed everything, then asked, "You want to sell or start eviction proceedings?" I took a breath. "Neither, not yet. I want a formal notice of intent to reclaim occupancy." Quietly. She understood right away. No yelling, no threats, just clarity, boundaries, something they never respected, but were about to learn. That night, while Chloe was doing homework, she looked up and asked, "Are we going to Grandma's next week?" I paused, then said gently, "No, sweetheart, not this time." "Are they mad at us?" "Maybe," I said, brushing her hair behind her ear. "But that doesn't mean we're wrong." She nodded like she understood more than I expected. Kids feel everything, especially the stuff we think we're hiding. I tucked her in, turned off the lights, and opened my inbox. Lena had already sent the draft letter. Subject: Intent to reclaim property, effective within 30 days. I read it twice, then hit send. No fire, no fury, just the quiet sound of a door beginning to close. And another one, opening. 3 days after I sent the letter, the silence broke. It started with a missed call from my mom, then 2 texts from my dad, one more passive-aggressive than the other. "We need to talk. Not sure why you're doing this, but this feels extreme." I didn't reply. Not because I was being petty, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to explain myself to people who never asked how I felt in the first place. That afternoon, my sister Meryl texted too. "Mom's crying, Dad's furious. Can you just undo this?" Undo what, exactly? Undo the years I spent paying off a house I didn't live in? Undo the moment I stood in that living room while they voted me out like I was a problem to solve? The next day, I got an email from Lena, my lawyer. Notice received, no legal dispute filed, 30-day reclaim window confirmed. That was her way of saying they knew they didn't have a case. On Friday, Chloe came home from school with her backpack halfway open and her shoes untied. Grandma called the school. She asked if she could pick me up for ice cream. I froze. I told them no, Chloe added, like it was no big deal. She said it's just ice cream, but I didn't want to go without you. My chest tightened. Not in fear, but in clarity. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about losing access to the only piece of me they still wanted. Chloe. That weekend, my dad showed up outside our apartment. I watched him from the window, standing there in his khakis and a windbreaker, holding a grocery bag like this was some sitcom apology scene. I didn't open the door. I didn't need to. He stood there for 8 minutes, then left. Inside the bag, a lemon pie and a Post-it note. For Chloe. Hope you're well. Dad. No apology, no responsibility, just pie. On Monday, Lena sent the final update. The 30-day clock had started ticking. I had the legal right to reclaim the house anytime. But, you know what? I didn't want the house. I wanted what it symbolized. The end of me letting people sit at my table after they voted me out of theirs. You ever realize that something you thought you needed to fight for wasn't worth the noise? That's what this was. Not revenge, not drama, just a clean door closing, and the soft click of peace on the other side. A week passed, then 2. No one else called, no one else texted. It was almost impressive how fast people go silent once they realize they've lost their favorite target. But silence doesn't mean clarity, and I knew someone was going to test the boundary. They always do. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. I was folding laundry when Chloe walked into the living room, her face pinched in that way she gets when she's thinking too hard for a 12-year-old. "Mom," she said, "is it true that we're not allowed to go to Grandma's house anymore?" I paused. "Why do you ask?" "Because Aunt Meryl told Emma that you kicked everyone out of the family house, and that you're angry all the time." There it was, not even subtle. I sat down beside her on the couch, a towel still in my hands. "Sweetheart," I said, "do you remember who paid for that house?" "You did." "Do you remember who said we shouldn't come back?" "Grandma." "Right." She looked at me, quiet. Then, "Why are they saying you're the one who ruined everything?" I smiled, not because it was funny, but because the lie was so desperate. Because people who hurt others usually need someone to blame, and I stopped making it easy. She nodded slowly, her little fingers curling into the hem of her shirt. Then she said it, the line I'll never forget. "So, you didn't walk away. They just kept pushing until you had to." It hit me harder than anything her grandparents ever said, because she got it. And now, she'd never unsee it. That night, I pulled out the original mortgage file. I reread every signature, every payment slip, every clause that made it clear. This house was mine, not theirs, not ours, mine. I remembered the day I signed it, how Mom had said, "Let's not tell anyone, it'll just make people uncomfortable." Uncomfortable with what? The truth, the next morning I drove to the house. No warning, no text. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. I left an envelope in the mailbox. No words, no threats, just a copy of the deed. Signed, stamped, clear. And a sticky note on top that simply read, "You don't get to erase me and live inside what I built." I didn't wait for a reaction, didn't need it, because sometimes the loudest truth is a quiet piece of paper that says, "I remember everything." And I'm not asking anymore. 3 months later, I signed the lease on a small townhouse with a tiny front porch and a crooked mailbox. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Chloe painted her bedroom walls lilac and stuck glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. She even taped a sign to her door that read, "No drama allowed." I didn't ask where she got the idea. I knew exactly. Every Sunday morning we walk to the corner bakery. She gets her usual chocolate croissant and apple juice. I get coffee and peace. Then we head to the lake trail behind the library. She brings her sketchbook. I bring nothing but breath. We sit on the same bench every week, an old wooden one with peeling paint, the one Micah used to take her to when she was little. It's quiet there. No votes, no whispers, no performance of family, just air, just space, just belonging. You know what's funny? No one ever followed up about the house. No apology, no letter, not even a passive-aggressive Facebook post. They just disappeared. And for the first time in my life, that felt like a gift. Chloe doesn't ask about them anymore. She doesn't check the mailbox for birthday cards that never came. She's growing into someone soft but sharp, the kind of girl who sees everything and lets go anyway. Last week, while we were walking home, she looked up and asked, "Do you think they miss us?" I paused, then said, "Maybe, but missing someone doesn't mean you treated them right." She nodded like she already knew, then skipped ahead, chasing a leaf down the sidewalk like she hadn't just dropped a truth most adults can't say out loud. I've started therapy, something I used to think was for people who were falling apart. Turns out it's also for people who don't want to keep bleeding in silence. My therapist helped me name it. Emotional exile. The kind of rejection wrapped in politeness. The kind of bullying that looks like a smile. I'm not angry anymore. I don't need revenge. I don't want them to feel what I felt. I just want different, quieter, kinder, ours. And if you've ever been the quiet one at the table, the one who stopped getting invited, the one who kept giving even when no one asked if you were okay, just know, walking away isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the loudest thing you'll ever do. If you're still reading, tell me in the comments, what gave you the strength to walk away? Because maybe your story will be the one that helps someone else finally close their door too.